welcome to Travel Camp Explore. Today I'm going to talk about our recent 7-night cruise on the Carnival Mardi Gras. This was my first ever Carnival cruise and Janelle's first Carnival cruise in a long time, so we were both excited to see what Carnival had to offer, and neither of us really knew what to expect. So let's get started. So Category 1 is the ship. The Carnival Mardi Gras was Carnival's first XL class ship. There's now a sister ship called Carnival Celebration, and Carnival Jubilee will be the third XL class ship. I believe it's scheduled to launch in the next year or so. The ship still looked pretty new, only one or two signs of wear and tear going on. The main thing I noticed was the handrails in the elevators were working loose. It's a much larger ship than the prior Carnival ships and has a very modern vibe when it comes to how it's decorated. I thought it was a beautiful ship. The design is a little more traditional than, say, Royal's Oasis class ships, with winding corridors and an atrium, which is where Grand Central is located. My only real criticism in terms of the design is it feels less open than some of the other ships, and it is easy to get turned around and forget which direction you are heading in, either forward or aft. I would have liked to have seen some kind of indicators to help with navigation other than on the elevator doors. The buffet in particular is a bit of a maze. There is a lot to do on the ship. There's a mini golf, outdoor pool tables, outdoor tabletop football games, kids play areas, splash areas, rope walk, a roller coaster, and multiple pools and water slides. I don't see how you could get bored. There are also activities throughout the day for adults and kids. The main thing to consider on this ship is that it is Carnival, so it is a noisy ship. Even in the over 21 area there was music playing, so not really any places you can just sit and relax in a quiet spot, apart from hopefully in your cabin. This is not a complaint, but it is something you should be aware of. Category 2, the app. The app was pretty typical in terms of features. Once on the ship, the calendar events is available, and you can select events and add them to your personal itinerary. You will get reminders shortly before the events you have added, and all of that worked well on the ship. There is a messaging feature within the app for while you're on board. On our cruise there was a $5 charge to use that feature, and as we had Wi-Fi anyway, we were able to message each other without it, so we cannot tell you how good that feature really is. Category 3, the internet. The Wi-Fi on the ship seemed strong from a signal perspective, however the internet itself was just okay. I had problems getting some of my emails to download, browsing websites was pretty slow. We had the intermediate internet package, so it may be better on the top tier package. If you are on Apple devices, iMessage worked great, and other messaging applications like Facebook Messenger also worked fine. That brings us to Category 4, which is food. There are several included options on board for food. These would include Guy's Burgers, Cachino Del Capitano, there's a panini place, a pizza place, Blue Iguana Cantina, street eats, you have the main dining room, Lido buffet, and of course room service, which does have a few per item. There are also a few specialty restaurants, Rudy's, Fahrenheit 555, Emerald's Bistro, and I'm sure I missed some. Carnival are doing something interesting and smart with one of their restaurants that would normally cost extra. That would be Cachino Del Capitano, more on that later. So let's talk about some of these in more detail. First, we ate in the main dining room for dinner twice, which is less than normal, but that was because there were so many other places to eat. We had selected early dining, so our assigned time was 5:30. We prefer that over an 8 p.m. dining time. The meals we had in the main dining were very good overall. My first meal I had a tomato soup, which was just okay. Could have been right out of a can. The steak, which again was just okay, a bit thin to really get the temperature you wanted. And a Carnival melting chocolate cake, which was really good. I enjoyed that so much I had that the second visit. The soup on the second visit was a meatball soup, and that was really good. The prime rib was way better than the steak. Overall, the food was good or very good, and the service was excellent. No complaints or negatives that I can think of with main dining. We ate in the Lido buffet a few times, but I would recommend you avoid it as much as you can. The breakfast buffet was absolutely terrible, by far the worst buffet experience I've ever had on any buffet. Everything was lukewarm at best, the scrambled eggs were cold, I wouldn't even eat them. They only had bacon every other day, and when they did have it, there was not a lot of it, and it had been cooked a long time before it was being served. Very poor, and I would say debatable whether some of the stuff was even safe to eat. I started eating cereal and fruit for breakfast, which is disappointing to me as I love a big breakfast. We did eat dinner there on one night. They had a crusted chicken dish and a beef dish, and both were good and hot. A lot of people rave about Guy's Burgers, and it was the first thing we ate on board the ship. It's located at the corner of Deck 17, close to the Red Frog Bar. The burgers were very good, better than Johnny Rockets, but not really any better than the dive-in on Holland America. We ate there again towards the end of the cruise, right after it opened, and I felt the burgers were seasoned better that time. Overall, a very good experience, and I would recommend them. I wish they had a soda machine there, but they just had water and lemonade. There was also a self-serve ice cream machine there, so dessert was sorted out. We also ate at Fahrenheit 555 on day 2 for dinner. I noticed that like some other cruise lines, their steak restaurant was not open for lunch. That's a shame because it's a good way to try the specialty restaurants for about half the normal price. I was pleasantly surprised how good this restaurant was. I had a salad, filet with a baked potato and onion rings, and a chocolate sphere. Everything was excellent, and I would recommend this restaurant. Janelle had a shrimp cocktail, the same entree and dessert. She agreed everything was excellent. Now here is where things get interesting. I mentioned Cachino Del Capitano does not cost extra on the XL class ships. I think the reason Carnival is doing this is to try to spread people out a little more to ease the pressure on the main dining room. Whatever the reason, we ate there on day 3 for dinner and got a great table outside. The service was not as good as in Fahrenheit 555, however the food was excellent. I had minestrone soup, chicken, parmesan, and then gelato for dessert. Everything was very good. I just noticed the service was a lower standard, no second drink offered during my meal, which I noticed was the case in all the restaurants. I know everyone is different on this, but it was less attentive than I would have liked. We came back for lunch on the sea day, and while the menu was completely different, the food was good. For this restaurant, you actually check in on the app and they tell you when your table is ready. Both times we used the system, the table was ready within 10 minutes. I thought this system worked very well. There is a limitation if you have early dining, and that is you cannot check in for dinner at Cachino del Capitano until 7:45 p.m. I'm not really sure what the logic around that is, but it seems strange to me. If you're used to eating early, you would expect that you would still eat early if you chose one of the check-in options, but for some reason, you can only go there later. We also ate at Guy's Pig and Anchor for dinner one night. This was a bit of a confusing experience because nobody told you how things worked. First, instead of using the check-in system in the app, you had to go to the restaurant, and we found out there was a 30-minute wait. They gave us an old-school restaurant pager. I'm not sure why they don't use the check-in system, that would have been better, but it was fine. When our table was ready, we were escorted to a table, and then began the confusion. Eventually we got someone's attention, and they brought us a sheet to fill out with what we wanted to eat. Once that was done, we had to get the waiter's attention again to submit our forms. About 10 minutes later, our entrees came out. We had similar things to eat. The chicken was the only disappointment, and that was because it was a little bit dry. But the pulled pork and the brisket were great. They had 4 sauces you could have with it: sriracha, Kansas City, Caroline, and brown sugar. They were good, but not as different from each other as I would have expected, especially the Carolina, which I would have thought would be mustard based. The band that played in here was pretty good. We saw them a couple of times, once while we ate and once just because we wanted to hear them again. We did have room service a couple of times, once for an afternoon snack and once for dinner. On both occasions the food came quickly and was hot, a lot better than the buffet, but as I mentioned, it does cost extra, and it cost us about $20 on both occasions. We also tried Shaq's Big Chicken both for lunch and breakfast. We both thought the food here was pretty good, but not as amazing as some people make out. It's a nice option though to get out of the buffet and have something different. So now let's talk about category 5, the cabin. The cabin was great. We had a spa balcony cabin, so it definitely felt like an upgrade from our last couple of cruises where we had inside cabins. The size was about typical for a balcony room, but it was decorated very nicely. There were a lot of power options, 2 USB ports by the bed, 4 USB ports on the desk, plus 3 110 outlets. There was plenty of closet space, a pull-out bed, a long counter that could be used as a desk or makeup area, a lit mirror, a couple of shelves, 3 soft close drawers and a refrigerator. There was plenty of space and the ship is still new enough that everything looked fresh. Bathroom was very small but functional. The balcony was not huge, but I have seen smaller balconies on cruise ships. Absolutely no complaints about the room. The steward did an okay job, but we did not even see him until about day 3 or 4. He kept up with the room and was putting fresh ice in the bucket every day, so no complaints. We just noticed that unlike other cruisers, he did not look out for us the first day to introduce himself. That brings us to category 6, shows and entertainment. So we never made it into the main theatre on this ship, but we did see a few of the shows they put on in the Grand Central area. The shows were okay, typical cruise stuff. Some talented singers. I just was not thrilled with their interpretations of some of the songs. Everything was sung in a Broadway style, which is not really my thing. We did see one of the comedians and he was pretty good. He did a 30-minute set in the Punchliners Comedy Club and I would recommend. We also spent a lot of time in the piano bar. There was a guy called Keith in there who was very entertaining, if a little crazy. He definitely was not always PG rated, but he was immensely talented on the piano and made sure people were participating. We had a great time 2 or 3 nights in there, would highly recommend. We also went to the silent disco, which was fun. The only criticism is they had 2 DJs and after the first 30 minutes they started playing very similar music, which kinda defeats the object of having 2 channels. Still, it was fun and the Limelight Lounge was very busy. So, category 7, excursions. We had booked 2 excursions before the cruise. The first was a Jeep excursion in Nassau. The cost was around $125 each, 4 to a Jeep, not guaranteed to drive, but I was the one nominated. When I first learned to drive, I drove on the left, but not in a left-hand drive vehicle, but following along in a group of Jeeps wasn't too hard. A few things to note: the Jeeps are not new. They are old and worn out. The steering wheel was just a suggestive device. The brakes needed a lot of pressure and we had no AC, not even a ventilation fan. Our pearl-coloured Jeep had 221,000 kilometers on it. The trip itself was not disappointing, but mainly because I'd seen videos and had pretty low expectations. In my opinion, they wasted too much time on a mediocre lunch at a local place, a couple of ribs, a chicken leg, some beans and rice. Then we stopped to look at a cave and had 20 minutes at a beach. We were actually late back to the ship, so I'm glad it was an official excursion, or the cruise may have ended there. I can't recommend the excursion overall, mainly because of the price. Now the second excursion was while we were docked in Amber Cove to the Ocean World facility. We had 3 encounters: shark, sea lion and dolphin. We had a great time. It felt a little rushed and we did not get a chance to look through the bird area, but we did thoroughly enjoy it. I would even say it was the best excursion we ever did. The sharks were interesting but not cute. The sea lion was cute. The dolphin summer was adorable and funny. I would highly recommend this excursion, but don't forget to budget to get the photos after. I think it cost about $90. But there were a ton of photos and a video, so it wasn't really too bad. So let's sum this up. Overall, this was a good cruise. The ship was great, there was a lot of entertainment, but like most cruises, you should do some research to see what to expect. I hope this video helps with that. There's a big difference between the different cruise companies, so it's important you book with the correct cruise line for you. This was definitely a louder cruise than we were used to during the day, but again, that's not bad as long as you know that up front. There were plenty of activities, lots of entertainment, a ton of things to do. The main disappointment was the buffet, especially for breakfast. The best breakfast I had was in the main dining room, where I tried Eggs Benedict for the first time, and it was really good. The boarding process was a little chaotic on day one, but it did go pretty quickly. There were 3 different lines to go through to get on board, but they all moved quickly. We were on board within 30 minutes of walking into the terminal, so not bad, it just didn't feel organised. So again, be aware of what kind of cruise you want, and if Carnival is a match, you'll have a great time. I think for us it would need to be a unique itinerary to cruise with Carnival again. There are other lines we enjoy more, where the food and especially the service is better. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope it helps you decide whether Carnival is for you. I hope to see you next time here on Travel Camp Explore.